I think there's a big difference between happiness and joy. Happiness, it's things that happen to you, but joy is kind of what you control. Hi, my name is Philip Anthony Mangan, and you are entering A World Gone Good.
Hello, and welcome again to World Gone Good, the podcast where we are shining a little bit of light during a little bit of a dark time. My name is Steve, and I am so happy you are here. Before we get started with today's show, I'd like to give you the friendly reminder that you can support World Gone Good just by tuning in, which you're already doing, sharing, subscribing, and yes, even giving some honest feedback. So whatever platform you're listening on, have at it. I want you to know I truly appreciate you helping me spread around the good. Okay, so I think we've all learned a lot during this time in our history. We've learned about separation and patience and how to make pretty decent banana bread and or sourdough starter. But for me, and maybe you feel this way too, this time right now has taught me to slow the F down. And it's taught me to live in the moment. My moment, your moment, this moment. And that's exactly what Philip Anthony Mangan has learned and has put into action. So, you were living kind of a dream for a lot of people, including, I would say, myself. You are somebody who made a huge life change. A lot of people, I think, say, I'm going to toss it all away and run away to paradise and start my own life that I've always dreamed of. But I want you to talk about that and talk about um, the change and what that all meant to you. So I'm going to let you have the floor. Take us back as far as you want to go,
Okay.
and where you are now.
Sure. Okay, so a little bit about me. The past 3.5 years, I've been living in New York in the modeling and acting industry. Prior to that, I ran my own business, a party bus company, for 7 years straight. And so I had a pretty big career shift when I took the leap and moved to New York. And I didn't move to New York because someone was offering me a contract or anything. It kind of just was a place I wanted to live, and I was ending my business, my current business, the party bus company, because the insurance rates were just getting so high. And was just looking for a fresh start, and I knew New York was the place that I wanted to be at. I wanted to live there for, I don't know, like probably about 15 years prior to that. And finally, I just, was like, okay, this is the time. This is the moment to go. I have experience running my own business. Let me see what happens. I didn't go with a job or anything like that. I just knew, let's go there. So then when I went there, that's one thing led to another, and it just kind of, the modeling thing kind of fell into place. I mean, no one gave it to me. Honestly, it was a lot of work to get into the position that I was in. In the whole process of making bigger changes to my life, I ended up becoming a vegan. That just kind of opened the door to so much more. I went vegan for nutritional reasons. I watched a documentary, What the Health. It just really spoke to me because I'd been big into nutrition for several years prior to that, for most of my life. The next day I just made the switch. The vegan life definitely, changed my whole mindset entirely about so much different stuff. When I found out about the environmental impact that vegans have, that was the deal. It just solidified, me as a vegan, and I decided to kind of utilize that and put some purpose behind my modeling platform. And since I love to write and I love to connect and teach others, I kind of just switch my Instagram handle to the vegan model and kind of just let it evolve. And big part of my modeling career, I would always just utilize my powers that may be for good. And I mean, even though I don't think modeling or acting is anything special to begin with, I mean, I think it's great. It's a creative outlet. I don't think we need to look at it in a certain way, but I thought, hey, if people want to look at it in this way, then maybe they'll listen to the words I have to say. I think towards the end of like 2019, I started really getting into more of the gardening stuff and the soil, and just realizing how much that's connected to different planetary stuff. Especially climate change. Long story short, the pandemic hit, and I was in New York at the time living, and as most people, I was afraid to stay there, and thankfully I'm from Florida, and my parents were welcoming me back, so I got out of the city before it got too bad. Went down to Florida, and I created a garden.
So you were in Florida, you were living with your parents. How does Hawaii factor into this? When did Hawaii become the
Yeah,
destination?
yeah, it's funny because Hawaii was never on my radar. Uh, you
Had you
know,
ever been to Hawaii before?
No, I never been to Hawaii before. Never thought about even going to Hawaii and visiting, or even obviously you hear Hawaii's paradise. It's beautiful, and I heard about this program, and it's funny because I actually looked up when I first heard about it, and I saved the link. But it's called woofing. Basically, it's like the Worldwide Organization of Organic Farms. I believe that's what it stands for, and it's basically where you can link up with farms of different statures, whether it's organic. I mean, all of them are organic in some sort of way, but all of them specialize in different things. And I remember looking at that link, back at the end of 2018, and just being like, wow, this sounds like a great experience. Like, I want to do this one day. And it's basically where you trade your time, your energy, for a place to stay, and for food, and you get to go and live on the farm, etc. Work trade is basically the term that it goes by. And I just remember like, wow, this sounds like a great experience. And put that in, save that link, and just had that thing in the back of my head. So when this time came about with the coronavirus, honestly, when I first got to my parents' house, I knew right away I was going to do woofing. And I was like, I'm going to do that because you know what? I know a lot of good can come from a bad situation. And I've been in those situations before.
What did your parents think of the idea of woofing?
I think my parents learned a while ago that I was never going to take the normal path in life. I have two brothers, and they've always said, like, each of you guys are different, and my parents have always kind of supported in a certain way, but I think it really was more of an eye opening, like after I graduated college, and I started taking my own path and finding some success with it, that they were more okay. Well, this is how he's going to be. Part of me felt like I was in my comfort zone there, and I was leaning on them for help, and I was like, you know what, I want to go and go back out and kind of go into this discomfort and kind of take this leap where I'm standing on my own 2 feet, where I'm not just sitting at home, and letting them provide for me. And that was one of the bigger drivers for me. Like, I knowing that, like, I didn't want to stay there and feel like, this is my life and I'm back living with my parents, kind of thing. So even though it was nice and it was great to be around them and spend time with them, part of me always has thought too, like, I don't want to, keep leaning on my parents in some sort of way, even though they support me. There's a point in time where you're just like, you don't really feel comfortable with that. And for me, that's been a driver, and it's a motivator too. I told my mom I was looking for like internships at first, farming internships, because I was thinking like, well, why can't I maybe do not work trade and actually do work and actually do an internship where, apprenticeship where you're getting paid to do it. So I was looking up that first, and then honestly, the one day my mom, like, I guess, heard about woofing from a friend, and she mentioned that, and I said, yeah, I'm looking into that too. So it was cool to like kind of hear her mention that. And then when I told my dad about it, at first they're all for it. And then the funny thing is, I don't even know if I would have thought about coming to Hawaii if I didn't like kind of go on there and I like said something to my dad, like, yeah, they even have some in Hawaii, and they traveled to Hawaii a couple years ago. And my dad was like, wow, like, if I was doing that, I would go to Hawaii, because wow, just imagine that experience, how, and they knew how amazing Hawaii was. And then, it almost kind of, from them putting it out there, or my dad putting it out there, kind of made me kind of broaden my thoughts about going so far away. It's all about the perception. So I just had to change my perception about saying like, hey, well, what's the worst that can happen? I come out here for a month and I enjoy Hawaii and I have an experience and then I go back if I don't like it. And just kind of twisting that way. There was really no lose scenario in that. It was a win-win either way. So that's kind of like what brought me here, is just kind of really just having the faith that, hey, I'm going to I'm going to yield something from it either way, and it's going to push me to outside a place I've never been before.
What island are you on, and where are you living on that island? Let's start there. I have another question to follow with that.
Sure. I am on the island of Maui, and I am living in a it's a little bit off grid from any of the major towns here, but I'm living at a 13-acre farm. I'm actually currently living with a the owner of the farm, sharing a house with her in a 2-bedroom place. So that is kind of my situation right now, and I am actually going to probably continue living here for until the holiday time, I believe.
Talk about your daily journal that you do online.
Well, I have a couple of journals I keep, but I keep a gratitude journal at night, and that's something that is it's something I started over like a year and a half ago almost. I started it yeah, probably about the summer of 2019. And that's been great because it just kind of like keeps you aligned with like being thankful for the simple things in life, like just having food, shelter, water, or but just other things, and I think when you can channel gratitude and write it down and kind of just take 5-10 minutes of thinking about that stuff, it really relays over into other areas of your life. But I also do a morning journal, and this is kind of a free flowing journal, and this is honestly probably the thing that I always talk about when I'm also a health and wellness coach. So when I coach people, I always say keep a journal, because you know a lot of those moments in my journal, it's just really me reflecting on how I'm feeling, and all these different things that are going through my head, and it's kind of almost helping me decipher stuff that a lot of people don't take the time and to quiet the noise and to decipher those things. And one of the best things about journaling, in my opinion, is you can look back on it and see how you were feeling then, and kind of see the growth, and not only see the growth. Sometimes you see stuff that you need to go back to. Maybe you lose track. So there's a lot of good that comes in journaling, and it's definitely been it's one of my forms of therapy, and I do like to write a lot. One of my goals is to write a book, but I like journaling because it's just really free flowing, and kind of like there's no structure to it, and I think it's just good for reflection. And I highly suggest, if anyone is listening out there, to start a daily morning journal, and before you let any of the noise come into your head, of whether you're I don't touch my phone for the first hour of the day, and I just that's the first thing I get up. I get up and I go outside here, and I with my journal, and I write, and it's about 10-15 minutes, and it's whatever is on my mind, and whatever, sometimes it's problems I create myself, sometimes it's things I'm going through that I have to maybe look at in a different way, but it's something that is definitely that's held me together for a lot of my past couple years of doing it. So I suggest anyone, if you're looking for something to do that could better you, start a journal.
I'll tell you two things. First of all, you just answered the next question, which is how do you start your day? So there's that. And number two, we have a happy, we call it a happy full jar. And what we do is we write things down all year long, and then on New Year's Eve we dump this thing out, and we have like anywhere between 75 100 of these. We don't do it every day, but we have all of them dated, and we open them up, and it's gonna be like, I bought a book, we took that walk, we went here, we had this meal, I figured out how to do this, whatever it was. And you just it's the simple little things that come back to you, that you're just like, these are the moments, these are the simple easy little moments
Oh
that
yeah. That,
we are yeah we lose track of.
oh yeah. No, and I love that idea, the happy full jar. I mean, it you hit it right on the the note right there. a lot of things I put in my gratitude journal is, same things, same things each day, because I know that, I'm channeling the things that I know make me better. If I'm grateful for something, so like I'm going to try to do more of that. I think there's a big difference between happiness and joy. Happiness, it's things that happen to you, but joy is kind of what you control. So if you can do things that bring you joy, so like for me, doing my journal in the morning, doing yoga in the morning, having a cup of coffee, and sitting and watching the sunrise. Like those things bring me joy. So those things always constantly make it to my gratitude journal. Even like just talking to my mom, like that brings me joy, like cuz I know I'm connecting. Um so I think that's where people like get things wrong. They're waiting for things to happen to them that make them, like feel this way, but we just need to be channeling more joy into our lives, because that's simplicity right there.
You are living on a farm in Maui, and the daily tasks and even the weekly tasks or monthly goals, if you will, of working off the land. Who's deciding what those are? Is it something you're deciding on a date? Like, speak. Can you speak to that of like what? How does the farm evolve, and who's making the decisions on what the farm's going to be?
The great part of this experience has been a lot of the creative control of what is going on as far as like getting planted in the garden, has been given to me. Still, it's not my show. I'm not the owner, but I've built up a great relationship with the owner, and she trusts me, and she knows like my vision for this place, and one of my goals here is to provide food security for them and whoever else they have coming in to this place. And she just, she's definitely given me this, given me her trust, and has allowed me to do a lot of things that I don't think I would have gotten to do elsewhere. So very thankful for that. But overall, there's still projects that I do on a daily basis that, you know wouldn't be my first choice of doing. But, when you're doing work trade, that's, it's not your land, it's not, your show. So and that was one of the, the battles I had to deal with, because I haven't, worked for anyone in, in years, over 10 plus years. So, adjusting to, it's not always what, I want or this and that. It's, that was definitely a bit challenging for me. But at the same time, I think it's good to get out of your comfort zone in that way, and just kind of remind you of, different things that you really want, or do you want to always work under someone or not? But yeah, it's been great either way. I've been able to kind of develop what, the vision might happen, might look like, for future generations that come here.
What advice would you give somebody who is looking into doing something similar?
Um, I would well, I would just, if you're looking for this type of experience, there's so many opportunities on that work trade site. Again, it's called Woofing, WWOOF. Just search that on Google, and the website will come up. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I would be patient with finding the right farm that, might fit you. Honestly, I signed up for the Woofing website, on the Woofing website, like a month and a half before I actually solidified this and made this happen. And I was very patient. I was looking at different options, and nothing really was like, oh man, I can see myself here, or this. I just really wanted to make sure I was making the right choice, where I didn't have to go bounce around. I wanted to find a place where I can kind of, plant myself, I guess you would say, as well. There's plenty of options out there. It's just about finding what you're looking for. This one is great because it's basically agroforestry. It's one of the better things that we can be doing, ways of growing, as far as like environmental, is you're incorporating things into the forest rather than tearing that forest down. This is one of the things I learned about before I signed up in, for the woofing. And when they told me that was kind of their vision, that's what really, really spoke to me. But yeah, I think anyone that's looking to even get started gardening or anything like that, there's plenty of information out there. But I would just kind of, like, and I'll just kind of like throw this in here. Like, my style of farming is about less work, more production. So I'm big into perennial plants. So if no one knows, annual plants, they only grow, once, for the season, and then you have to plant them every year, basically, hence the name annual. Perennial plants continue to produce. They don't die. They're like trees. Trees don't just grow for a year and die. So I've been really big into finding different types of perennial vegetables to plant here that if I leave and no one is here to tend to the garden, they will thrive still, with very, very, very little maintenance. And that is the style of farming that I'm about, because it shows that you don't have to dedicate all of your time. Sure, you have to make a foundation here to actually put things in the ground and that are going to get them in a stable environment. But once they establish themselves, they will keep producing. So I think this is the future of farming, to be honest. And that's what excites me, is just different way of doing it, of creating an abundance of food in a small space, stuff that's going to keep providing, where you don't have to just put in so much manual labor that you're breaking your back over.
Okay, three more questions. Who inspires you?
I'd say, first off, my mom. Uh, my mom inspires me from what she's been through, health wise, and and her way of looking at life, and just being very compassionate to everyone. And my dad inspires me because of his work ethic, and I know it's instilled in me. And then I'd say probably, like, I'm gonna throw Oprah in there, because Oprah honestly has been a big, like, I got into listening to her books at a point in my life that it was about a year and a half ago, that I was at this crossroads, and it just really spoke to me in this way. I even saw Oprah live before the coronavirus happened, in New York. I was like, probably one of the only 100 guys there. But the thing is, like, her and her ability to see things and help people in a certain way, and elevate them, and motivate them to be better, that's one of my goals. And that's like, so just seeing what she's been able to do, and her way that she sees life in certain ways, and her never giving up, like she was at the top when she was running her show. That didn't mean like, hey, my life's over. She just took on a new direction. I think seeing similar people, like, do similar things, so, like, that's, she just kind of is doing something that I'm striving to do. So that's why she inspires me.
Okay, this is the easiest one. Where can people find and follow you?
All right. Well, I'd say you probably follow me the most right now on my Instagram, and that is at _vegan model. Or, you can, if anyone's interested in, health and wellness coaching, my health and wellness coaching platform is called, you can go to the website. It's called myfittesthour.com. And, fittest, FITTEST. And, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways, but I'd say the vegan model Instagram page will link you to all the other little projects I have doing. And I think I'm about to start creating a YouTube channel here, and teaching people about different plants, because that's now that I've, spent 3 months, kind of really teaching myself. I want to pass that information along to other people. So stay on the lookout for that. I'm sure you'll be able to find it via my Instagram. But yeah, appreciate a follow if you guys do.
And this is the last question that I'm asking everybody. It's free form, and you can answer it any way you want. The question is, tell me something good.
Something good. All right. What's good to me is seeing people help each other, and you know, kind of look at simplicity in certain ways of, you know, what's going on in the world right now. How can we come together? It's compassion for others.
Thank you and mahalo to Farmer Phil, as he calls himself. Next time we are in Maui, I can't wait to get a tour of the farm. Next time on World Gone Good.
We don't go through the world looking for trouble. We know it exists, but I think we're so conscious of also navigating the good, navigating around adverse situations that when they do, I mean, this was a situation in some where this man just came upon me. I mean, I was literally minding my own business. I didn't even make eye contact with him, and he chose me.
My friend Mary Edwards was verbally and almost physically assaulted by a white man simply because Mary is black. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, I thought this was a show about good things, Steve. Well, it is. Trust me. This is a story you need to hear because we're going to answer a question, a very important question, which is, how do we make good come out of a truly bad situation? I hope you'll join me. Until then, be good.